Welcome to another video. I'm your host, Joseph, and this is my friend Pierre on the One Good Road show. And this is going to be one of our podcasts about the topic of running and various subjects around that. So we're going to be discussing various fears that we've overcome through doing the motion of running and doing the activity of running, and a recent 50K challenge that I completed a few days ago. We're going to be talking about some advice about getting into running, some inspiration, why, and that sort of thing. And we might even diverge into some of the previous trips that Pierre and I have done, which were mainly done by foot and are heavily related to running and why we like running. So, the first thing I'd like to discuss today would be about the story of overcoming some anxieties that were formed about 2 years ago, and they were formed from a surgery that I had done, which is just a simple hernia repair. And what happened was that after I had this minor thing done, I then wasn't able to move around and do any activities for about a week, and then even after about 4 weeks, I still hadn't fully recovered to. I mean, I could almost ride bikes again after 4 weeks, and what it taught me was about losing that connection to the body and having to find other ways to approach life, not just via physically what I can do. So I worked on making films. I worked on books and stuff like that, and I was actually working at a bike shop at the time. So I had different things which were happening, but I still had this thing within me, is that like there's now something wrong with me. And for about, I would say, 6 months after all of that, it was still plaguing my mind that there was something not quite right. And every time I tried to enjoy an activity with a friend, or if I wanted to go for a bike ride or anything like that, I always felt like there's this scarring tissue that wasn't fully healed, that mentally kept making me feel like I can't do it the exact same way I did before. It just made me feel like abnormal, I guess. So this whole story is about like overcoming the fear and the doubts that are created simply in the mind, and how pain can really control who you are, and how I feel it's important to not let it overtake and over control, and to not allow it to be so invasive in your life. Um, so then, about 1.5 years later, Pierre and I actually went for a bike ride about a year ago, almost to this day, about a month difference, and we went to Collier. And at the time, I still hadn't fully properly healed yet. I still had this scarring tissue pain, and I felt like, you know, I was happy that we could do this trip together, but I was really frustrated that I couldn't do it to the fullest of my potential. Considering all of the identity before me, I was able to do all of these things, all these other adventures, which you might have seen on the channel. If you haven't, it's all loads of different adventures by bike. Having that patience allowed me to have experiences that were different to what I was previously so known and so good at, which then allowed me to create more balance, as you say, uh, so that you're not completely obsessed with one thing, and you actually need more variety in your life. That's what it was teaching me at the time. So anyway, all of that was popping up, and at some mental way, I kind of reached a really low point. I really felt like nothing was really working for me at the time, and I had to allow for change, basically, which was letting go, which was really hard at the time, and embracing that variety was not so easy. And fast forward to now, I wanted to do this 50-kilometer challenge because I had done previous marathons before, but I always had in the back of my mind, can I go even further than that? how far can you go with just your own two legs? Not even without a bike, no car, nothing. And I managed to do it with only like 6 days of training. And we did some hiking actually in the mountains, which was helpful, and some other bike rides around the area. And that's after doing that, it reminded me about the strength that we have within ourselves. That's what it was about. Is that it's always there. I always think to myself, it's gone. I can never grab it again. But it's always there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's like it's a bit cliche, but it's like finding the light that is within yourself, basically. So, and remembering how strong you are as a human being, really. And once you're determined enough and you're willing to go through whatever the costs, you can accomplish whatever you want in life. And that's what it was about. So, now I want to open up the discussion into various different things. Wanting to talk about why I enjoy running, why you might enjoy hiking or running, because to me they're very similar. I should also say that it's not about competitive running. Personally, I'm not into competitive running. Have you ever been into the competitive stuff?
That's cool. Only.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That's cool. I was never into it. They would have all of these tournaments and cross
Mm.
country races. I always wanted to do something else. I felt like I was the black sheep of the crowd.
Yeah.
You
And
felt like that?
there is something about ego. I mean, it's a score thing. You have to run faster than the others, and the fastest has have something like a reward, and the slowest has nothing or something.
Yeah, like you're a failure. You suck.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's not about that because in life there's loads of failures
Yeah.
and everyone you learn from, which
Yeah.
then allows you to be even better than before so that you can attempt it again. That's what life is, in my opinion, is constant learning a process all the time.
Mm. And you can you reach your own score. I mean, but uh, if the purpose is to be the best or better than the others, you will always find somewhere else which is better than you. So
Yeah,
there is no point.
if you're on the path of just constantly comparing yourself to people all the time,
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty silly because a quote I recently read on some YouTube comment was like, if you're comparing your beginnings to someone else's middle of their story, that's not a fair comparison because you aren't even at the middle yet,
Mm.
let alone the end
Mm.
of that chapter. And then the
Yeah.
chapter doesn't actually finish, it just continues to the next one.
Yeah, and it's different paths and different stories and stuff. Um, you have a disease which is didn't help you to have your best fit for.
Optimum,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it depends how we are in the fitness, how we are in the mind, how in different layers.
I think it's also about how we want to approach it because we're actually, I remember you saying it in a podcast we did a while back, is that we're very adaptable creatures. That's like the essence of being a human being. If it weren't for the changes that we've had throughout the many centuries of being a human, I don't think we'd be even at this point. Really.
Mm.
Hard to say. I don't know further back than my own lifetime. But that's what my dad also talks about as well. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Um, so, something else that I find interesting is the diet that actually both of us are on. Because when it comes to the world of sports in general, I feel that most people think about protein a lot. There's a lot of obsession with it.
Mm-hmm.
And most people eat a lot of meat. And I really feel that after doing this 50K run, and the other cycling and hiking challenges we've done, you the diet that we're both on, you're vegetarian and I'm vegan, was vegetarian, and you can achieve a lot of things on a very simple diet. I mean, some of the hiking adventures we did, we just ate canned food, and it was okay. It's not super nutritious, but you get your can of beans, you get some green beans, and maybe for an extra bit of flavor, you get some lentils. No, I'm kidding. You find other ways to be creative
The
as you.
can is good itself.
It's very handy. You can cook it on the fire and all these other things. I mean, and there's a whole other side of vegetarianism that is and vegan, which is also you can cook amazing creative meals. You don't have to eat from the can at all.
But what's
Um,
interesting is that your hernia teach you how to eat differently as well.
yes,
Before that, you eat differently, and now you are vegan and you change your diet.
a lot.
Mm.
In the last year, at the beginning, about a year ago, it was I was eating M&Ms. I was eating a lot of bread, pasta, just bad food, really, just really not good food. And then as time went on, and I came back to living here in France, it was I allowed myself to experiment with having no grain diet, and someone got me into the vegan diet via I think it was a friend of mine in California that really kicked it off the idea, and then combining those two things, and then I was able to get creative. Like instead of having cereal in the morning, you can grate a yam or a sweet potato, and then you can cook that because it's got the same kind of texture as porridge, which I didn't know at the time, but it works. I put various different things like raisins, apricots. I eat a lot of prunes, uh, which we always joke about. Apples, bananas, fruits in general. Because I couldn't even eat. I wasn't eating cereal because that's a grain, most of it. So that was really cool, and I got even better at cooking as a result from changing my diet as well. And then you can still do all of this sportive exercise and stuff. You don't lose any performance, in my opinion, in my experience. It's hard to say because I've been a vegetarian for like 10 years prior to being vegan. How long have you been vegetarian for?
12 years.
Okay, about
Mm.
longer. Yeah, got our cups of tea, which is necessary. So you can accomplish a lot on a very basic, simple diet, which I think is really cool. And again, we've already discussed about the racing, how we've never really been into it at all. It's really about for me, it's about the perspective that it gives you. It's about the meditative journey that you can take via doing these activities, doing these experiences. And you can even do massive journeys with them, which is so amazing. You can do them around your local area because I did that run, the big run around this area. You can do hiking in your local area and still get the adventure in life. And you can even go beyond that and go across countries just with your own two legs. I personally think that's really cool, super eco friendly, super budget orientated. In some ways, I don't know why people have cars, really. I know why people have cars, but still, you don't really need one. What do you enjoy about running?
um, Running or kayaking or hiking or riding a bike
Mm hmm.
are pretty similar in the way we are enjoying the freedom of being out and um, moving through landscapes, um, through experience of being just in our own bubble of traveling and experiencing
different perspectives.
Yeah, just breathe, uh, see what's happening close to you, and then you can see where you are going. So it's something really, it pulls you in the moment of the in the present moment.
Mm. It brings you into that now
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's pretty intense, and you it gives you the opportunity to don't overthink, because when we are static we are used to be thinking about a lot of things, and then we are out of our body in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Or thinking too far in the future, or
yeah,
bringing up.
projections,
Yeah.
what I'm going to buy for food for tonight and stuff, blah 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 blah. And when you're running, you're just running and you're there and you're focusing what's happening next, and you can see the flowers, the birds,
Mm-hmm.
the landscapes, and you just feel that more intensely that than usual, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I I find myself not thinking about the destination so much, and really trying to feel about where we are. Well, it's quite a cliche thing to say, but it's about like people say like, oh, being in the moment is about the journey and not about the destination. But then again, for me, it's a balance, because if I hadn't have set goals, sometimes I wouldn't have done the journey.
Hmm.
You know, like if we didn't say we're going to run 10 kilometers today, we wouldn't actually run 10 kilometers. We wouldn't have any input. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm.
so I think there has to be some determination, a little of that
Yeah,
to do it. But
and yeah, and because you want to be at this destination, you have the energy to do it, even if it's far away.
mm-hmm.
You have the energy to do it because you want, as you say, it's a determination of uh, reaching that point.
But I think as you're running, I don't get obsessed by the goal. Eventually, it's more about really connecting, yeah, with where you are and the actual motion of running, hearing your feet, you know,
Mm.
thudding against the ground every step you take, that rhythm is what I think about. And the breath, when you're breathing and you feel your heartbeat, all of that is many of the reasons why I love it so much. Um, and anyone can do it, really. We were sort of creatures that were born to run, in a way, or at least to
Walk,
move,
yeah.
walk. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we walk or ride together or run,
Mm.
we have this special mental mind mode when we are like in high stage, where we get fun easily. We are more
Having fun.
like kids in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
but
And I'm
in a good
21
way.
and he's 33, not
Yeah,
34, which he said in my other
but
video.
when we run, we are the same.
Yes,
There's no
our
age.
ages become basically the same spectrum. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre. I always forget that you're like 10 years ahead or whatever, and yet it doesn't really feel like that. We feel very in an equal plane level. It's really nice to experience that. And it's not about the age at all, really. It's about the experience,
Yeah,
you know?
and as we said before in other podcasts, it's also because when we do that, the freedom give us the feeling that we are not in this society code of the what is normal, what is not, the age, the what we have to do or how we have to behave. We are just free to be ourselves, and that's really important, I think, in this world.
I think it's, yeah, definitely something that a lot of people are trying to discover. I think that's why people might be even on this video listening to it. I hope. Not just about like product reviews or something really mundane. I really like getting into the nitty gritty about who are you and what is your purpose? What is that? I think that's really interesting personally. So, a story I want to share is when I was about, how old was I? I think I was around 8 to about 10. No, 6 years old to about 10. I had asthma. Wasn't very heavy asthma, but it was there, and that's also another reason why I was not into competitive sport. And it's funny how school just keeps pushing it on you every time you go there. Um, and to me, it's interesting that to this day, I don't have any of this asthma symptom, and yet it's sort of portrayed to most people that you're going to have this for a while, and you're not going to be able to cope with it, and it's going to make your life rubbish. Blah blah blah. This is like people like doctors or such, or people in general who like to perceive the worst case scenario, and they're not really open to being optimistic, really.
Mhm. Sometimes put things in the box and
Yeah,
it's closed somewhere.
you cannot change from this, and this is the way it's going to be. That's silly, like we are the masters of change. That is the human race by definition in some ways, plus a lot of other definitions, but that's definitely one of the highest ones. And if you don't embrace that, I mean,
How you
yeah,
you lost this asthma?
it was funny. I think I left school because I wanted to try getting out of the system and learning in a very different way. I went for the homeschooling route, which was a hard decision in itself. And that allowed me to experiment with uh, doing a sport just because I felt like doing it, and finding the meaning in it, and not thinking about what others think of well, removing that whole competitive side. And as I went into it, I just slowly forgot about it. It slowly over time, you say to yourself, like, I like this because I have this interest. And slowly, this other image that is there fades away. And it doesn't control you, it doesn't consume you. Eventually, over time, as they say, time heals all wounds, you
Mm.
just, you slowly let it go, and you become something else. As long as you're open for the change, you're always going to find yourself in the right balance, in the right place, I would say. As long as your motives and your desires are strong, or, you know.
Mhm.
So that I think that's how I found myself getting over that, was just slowly over time. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly over time letting that go. And that's also what overcoming that whole hernia meant, because it wasn't just physically, it was mentally how it really affects you.
Yeah, I think it affect you more in the mental than in the physic actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Another thing I noticed with the running, with this whole, I mean, the label is ultra marathon running, but it could be even marathon running in general, or long distance running, is that you go through this sensation of suffering, and you're basically getting into enduring how far you can push your body, and enduring not only the physical but also the mental side of things when you're going through that experience. And what I find in most endurance things that I push or I compete against myself in is that after a while, the pain, you start to let go of it, because you're always going to have it there. If you keep hanging on to it as you're running, or if you keep hanging on to it as you're cycling, even, or whatever you want to try and achieve, you're sort of creating this weight that holds you down in a way, and you can't get rid of it. It's always going to be there, you know. By the way, I'm not a health advisor, I'm not a doctor, so just keep that into consideration when I'm saying this. You should definitely think about what you're doing and how your conditions are. I just discovered this stuff over time and accumulated this to mean this in this moment. And it works for me at the moment. That that's my was my approach. That's why I like endurance events or enduring a challenge physically and both mentally is that the suffering you then discover beyond that. You sort of start to access this meditative Zen state.
Mm.
Have you experienced that when we were riding or hiking?
Yeah.
You had that when hiking, right?
Hmm.
Because
Kayaking
yeah,
and hiking is maybe easier than running, but it's working as well.
yeah,
It's just slightly different,
hmm
but hiking is it's working more for me. When you have just you pause somewhere and you have a beautiful landscape and you just look at the mountains or the water or something and
well, I like the pace of hiking because you are even more relaxed. You can even enter the meditative state even quicker, I think.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and running is, I think it's still a powerful tool, but you're not really relaxed. You can't be relaxed when running. It's more
Not
like
really.
you want to feel, this your heart racing. You want to really bring up this feeling like, oh, I'm alive, I'm strong, I can do this, I want to have fun, and all of this energy starts to form. It's like putting your body on like maximum overload, like, woo, let's do it. That's how it feels like.
Yeah,
you know but yeah, on long distance runs it's a bit different because I think you start to slow your pace down, and then it becomes a bit like hiking. That's what I noticed.
yeah.
Similar.
Mm.
But the weight we were carrying is impossible to do when you're running. Carrying
Of course.
18-20 kilos is not fun if you were running. So that's another advantage of the hiking. I think I've already shared some advice, I hope, that's hopefully helpful to people who want to trying to push their limits and discover and try challenges that you haven't tried before, because they all give you new insights and perspectives on who you are and what you might have as your purpose. For me, I'm discovering like the adventure that I want to have in life, because it just makes you feel more alive having adventures. Otherwise, life's just really mundane and kind of the same every day, Groundhog Day. And after a while, it just becomes very predictable. So variety comes out of that.
I would say if you are not used to do sport, uh, it's to do a little bit of sport regularly. That way, your body gets used to it and build the muscles, and then you can go further. But if you try to do 50K at the first week you do sport, is pretty hard.
Yeah,
So little step and regular sport help you to build your um, yeah your body.
your stamina.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree. You start off small, you build it up, and also don't underestimate having those rest days.
yeah,
Because when I was training myself up, I had 2 rest days on that 6 day period. So that was really important to allow your body and the joints to recover, because it's quite a toll. If you just run on your joints and they feel super uncomfortable, your body starts to slow down, and then you can't even keep your pace up. So pacing is really important, I would say, for completing those challenges. That's what I would say. Water is really important, and when you're doing a long distance run, especially, this might even apply to hiking and cycling, but I'm not entirely sure. the when you're trying to eat food when you're on a long distance run, you can't really digest it because the blood in your stomach, which is usually there, is flowing into your muscles, into your joints. It can't actually really properly digest food. So I recommend eating very light things like fruits, nuts, dried fruit as well, and very easy to digest carbohydrates. That's what most people do. And I would say that could apply to cycling, and it could apply to hiking as well. But we ate quite a lot actually when we were hiking, which is kind of weird. Maybe that's why I
It
didn't
was
lose any
winter
weight. Oh yeah, it was
first,
winter.
and
Yeah,
we need a lot energy to carry the things as well.
I forget that.
Yeah.
It was colder. Yeah, it was a couple nights it was freezing, below freezing.
Mm.
Okay, I think that's our topic for now. I hope I've covered everything that is helpful to people. So if you want to stay subscribed for more content, if you like this type of style of content, let us know. Leave comments down below on any of your suggestions for future videos or topics to talk about. We recently got into kayaking as well. And this is what the whole variety thing I was talking about is like kayaking, hiking, cycling, and running. Those are the four things at the moment. Who knows? Maybe we get into swimming. I don't know. Maybe we'll get into skydiving. I have no idea. That's not really a sport.
We can try. We can
Yeah.
invent one.
Skiing, skydiving.
Oof.
All right. That's it for now. We're going to go off and be very busy. And we will see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.